guys, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about a slightly more abstract concept. As you know, one of my goals is to attain financial freedom, and one of the exercises I had to do and think about how to achieve that was identifying how much money I think I will need in order to retire. And that's the concept of finding your number. So what do I mean by that, right? It's the amount of money that you will need in order to retire, and that's unique to everybody, and that's key when you're thinking about financial freedom. And people on the movement, you'll know what I mean by the magic number, right? And that's what I mean by it being abstract. By the by, even though it's abstract, you can apply mathematical principles, use previous studies in order to find out and get sort of like a realistic picture of what your number might look like. And so I'll talk through that and what you might need to do in order to figure that out. So let's break this down. Financial freedom generally means different things for different people. So for some people it might mean getting out of debt, or being mortgage free, making work optional, or just generally you might just want financial freedom to spend more time with your family and your kids. So there is an art to calculating what your number is and maintaining that, but there will always be other factors that will influence how your number changes over the years. So for example, the number will change as your family grows. If you guys have more children, your number for financial freedom and retirement is going to change, because you'll have more responsibilities, you may want to pay out, you may want to plan for their futures. So also there's another factor like lifestyle creep, right, where you might get into that sucked into that vacuum of consumerism or keeping up with the Joneses. The more you earn, the more you want to spend, right? So you might get a bonus one week, or you might get a pay rise the other next year or something, but then your lifestyle creeps up in order to kind of fulfill this kind of image, or you might just want to spend more money, who knows, or you might buy a bigger house, for example. That's the classic example. So I found that you have to stay true to your values and your goals in order to avoid being sucked in and absorbed by this whole consumerism mindset. And it's so easy to do, especially when you're thinking about things like how easy it is to shop, like having Amazon at your fingertips. That's the bane of my life, like I always I'm like, Amazon, I can buy this, that and the other, da, da, da. But anyway, like I was saying, it's so easy to get absorbed into that kind of lifestyle creep. Taking a deeper dive and thinking about the number, I started off thinking about what a good day might look like. Sometimes it might be enough to know that you can actually own something. So there's been various studies that indicate that you get a strong psychological comfort from knowing that you can afford something than actually having that thing. So it might be one day you're like, oh my god, it's going to take me 6 months to save for this particular handbag, I'm going to save for it. By the time you get to the 6 months, you can afford it, but you might not really want it as much anymore. So because according to studies, you have that psychological comfort of knowing that you could have had it anyway. So that in turn means that you don't have to realize that actual thing, and that could apply to lots of things. And don't get me wrong, I've also been guilty of this as well and spent money on various things like that, and we call them the sweet trappings of wealth. But secondly, the concept of being frugal, right? So let's get this clear. Being frugal isn't being cheap, okay? You have to appreciate the value trade-off, and what I mean by that is that you have to appreciate how much time it takes for you to earn that money. And like I said before, money is a resource that's working for you. So in turn, you also want to calculate the net present value. And what I mean by that is understanding what the value of something is when you need it, when you buy something today, right? Understanding the value of something when you need it, when you buy something today. I hope that's clear. And that's called the net present value, and that will be quite important for when I talk in a minute about how to calculate your magic number. So the general human impulse is the enemy of financial freedom. So anything that's an impulse purchase will have a snowball effect on the net present value, as it takes away the earning potential of that resource in the future as you spend it today. So another concept I came across was the younger you are, the less money you will need to save in order to retire. I know that sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it does make sense, because if you start saving when you're younger, you potentially have a lot more years of earning under your belt. So say when when I started investing away for my pension when I was 20, I'd have a lot more time in order for compounding to take effect, compared to if I started putting away for my pension when I was 40, for example. So that is the compounding effect, and the younger you are, the more years your money will have in order to compound. Going back to the concept of calculating your number then, I had to look at some retirement studies, and I came across the well-known study, the Trinity Study. I'll put a link in the description of my blog article which goes into a little bit more depth about the Trinity Study if you're interested. But anyway, to summarize, it suggests that you need 25 times your expenses saved on a 4% withdrawal rate, and that will give you the number that you need in order to retire. So I found I had to do a couple of things in order to actually work out what my number is and what it involves in calculating my true expenses. So bear with me, and I hope I haven't lost you, because I know personal finance is boring. I know that calculating and looking at data is difficult, and I know that being given a reality check is annoying, because knowing how much you spend on clothing and takeaway and random Amazon purchases is annoying. It's cumbersome, guys, and that's why people don't do it. And you know, that's why if you don't do it, you suffer, right? But this kind of stuff kind of gets me a little bit excited, I'm not gonna lie. But the first step is knowing that you need to do it, and that's the hardest. But if you recognize that already, then why wouldn't you do it? And you're winning, right? So control your financial future rather than you being dictated by your finances, right? You don't want to be controlled by your finances. So my husband and I both use a budgeting tool called YNAB and Sync for YNAB. I'll put a link down below, and if it's interesting to anybody, I can do a video at a later stage about how we use it. But whatever you use or you don't use, doesn't matter. Like, you can use paper and pen and whatever you want, right? But just don't make excuses, because that's just being lazy about your finances. Just realize that the financial industry is a needs and behavior based system, and where we, the consumer, always pay, right? So no matter what it is, just get smarter. I'm not saying don't spend any money, but be educated in how you spend and what you spend your money on, okay? That's what I'm trying to say, no matter how you do it. Okay, early retirees firstly use the 25 times expense rule, right? So you may possibly need more, you may possibly need less, but use something that's an approach like that. Secondly, avoid taking dividends. So where you invest your savings and they're paying out dividends, don't take them out, just reinvest them, and that will make your pot grow, right? And then thirdly, take an emergency fund. Create this emergency fund, and that is approximately 6 times your expenses. Fourthly, live on as little as possible. I mean, who knew that when a few weeks ago Amazon stopped Prime delivery because of the lockdown and the pressure that it was undergoing, that I didn't actually need Prime delivery every week. It was Jeff Bezos and his psychological manipulation that made me think that every purchase was urgent and needed it yesterday. By the way, like, think about it, right? And also, finally, preserve your principal. So that's the amount that you have saved, and preserve it. Work out what your number is at times 25. And hopefully that will give you a little bit more of a clear roadmap. So I came across Grant Sabatier and his journey to financial freedom. It's a really good book. I'll put the link in the description below if you're interested. Really great read. But he explains sort of the saving aspect of it, almost like a Nando scale, and we've seen a lot of those lately, so I thought that was quite funny. If you know, you know, but I thought it was worth sharing anyway. So Grant Sabatier says that for you to be sufficient in your savings, what you have through a paycheck is enough to cover off your expenses. In order for you to have breathing space, you have 3 times worth your expenses saved. In order for you to be stable, you have 6 times worth. And like I was saying, the 6 times is great, because that means that, according to research and theories and things, that's enough for an emergency fund in case anything goes wrong. But in order for you to be completely flexible, you have 24 times your expenses invested, and that investment could be, you know, real estate, it could be stocks, bonds, anything like that, funds, and as long as it's invested, that's all that matters. Okay, so spend 10 minutes now figuring out what your magic number is and multiply it by 25 and see what you get. You might surprise yourself. But until next time, please like, comment, subscribe down here, and that's all. Let me know how you get on. Or I'm going to do another video on net present value that will go into a little bit more detail. So yeah, cheers guys, bye.